What's up, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all the other platforms, Discord. We're live here at the Open Table with Tom Campbell with the Libertarian Party here locally in Campbell County, and the Campbell County Chair, your favorite capitalist, myself, Zeb Proctor, and your favorite anarchist, Hal Boston. Today, the topics, we're going to talk about the Libertarian Party, different aspects of a third party, a viable third party to compete with this two-party system that we have right now. Hal, what do you got on that?
Hold on a second.
And how we can get involved on a local level. We've got Tom Campbell with us today. And hey, Tom, why don't you introduce yourself and give us a little background on you and what your affiliation is with the Libertarian Party and how that started, you know, and where that's taken you. You there, Tom? Can you hear me? You there, Tom? Can you hear me? You got a little bit of Murphy's Law, guys. That's okay. Bear with us.
Hey, 3 for 3, man.
Is he in the the waiting room?
He'll probably be back. Tell him to read.
Not sure what happened, but hey, but whatever happened, I'm blaming the duopoly.
Blame us. That's okay. It's okay. It's
no, the last thing I heard was about. Thank you for your gracious introduction, and about just a little bit about myself and how I got involved in the Libertarian Party.
Absolutely.
So I'm happy to talk a little bit about that. Like a lot of people. I mean, I don't have hard numbers on this, but you know, when you talk about libertarians, you have folks that have been Republicans, you have folks that have been Democrats, they have been another party, they have been an independent, or they haven't had any affiliation at all, and they've become part of the Libertarian Party. I was a lifelong member of one of the parties. I'll admit I was a lifelong Republican and supporter of Reagan on down, and all that sort of thing. But I didn't become libertarian. I figured out I was one, and I found myself drawn towards libertarian, and then realized that what I believed was more in line with where the Libertarian Party was. The Republican Party began to leave me. The Democratic Party was not kind of in line with where I was. But this Libertarian Party was. So even before I became Libertarian, I found myself supporting Libertarian candidates. Because Tennessee is a red state. You know, the way the Electoral College is, you know, it's kind of a foregone conclusion. So I began voting for Libertarians. And finally in 2016, that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me, and I decided, you know what, if I'm voting Libertarian and I believe Libertarian, I'm going to become Libertarian. And I began to meet up with great Libertarians across the state. The party chairman at the time, Cole Ebel, the current party chair, Josh Eckel, Regional chair, Justin Cornett, who you had on last week, outstanding libertarian. The godfather of the Libertarian Party in Tennessee, Tom Arnold, who I think grew up here in Campbell County, in Jellicoe, but now lives in Middle Tennessee, and just some outstanding people. So I started going to regional meetings. We didn't have a chapter in Campbell County, and so we began one, and we're still kind of crawling at this point. But I was named interim chair. Went to my first Libertarian state convention and felt absolutely at home at the get-go. It was kind of like going to a family reunion, and so met some of the best people you would want to meet, and that's how I became part of the Libertarian Party, and I'm honored to be the chairperson for the Campbell County Libertarian Party. I've been able, like I said, to go to state convention a couple of times, and it's always an outstanding time to come together and to realize, you know what, I'm not alone. There are a lot of people out there who believe like I do, who believe that the government should be hands off, that the government should have as little say-so about my life and trust me to have a say-so in my life, that the government shouldn't be forcing me to do things, but allowing me to voluntarily contract to do things with other people. That as long as I don't hurt anyone and don't take their stuff, that it's kind of hands off. And to find other people who believe in that, to find people who believe in all of your freedoms for all people, for all time, who believe in not only the First Amendment, but the Second Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and so on. To know that there are people like that out there, and people like that who are not satisfied with just vanilla or chocolate. They're not satisfied with just Ford or Chevy. They're not satisfied with the two-party system that we have that is basically just regurgitating the same things over and over and over again, that there is an actual honest-to-goodness choice. And that choice is the Libertarian Party, the fastest growing party in this country. And so I'm excited to be part of that, and just thrilled to be here to share that with you guys and with your listeners.
Well, I think you got me and Hal like super stoked for the same thing, which is sometimes kind of funny. Hal, what do you got on that?
Well, I think to your point of there are people out there like that. I think, especially here in the South, you see a lot of people that would have a hard time disagreeing with what you just said. But generational voting, coupled with just not having a platform for any sort of viable third party, has kind of stifled that. Yeah,
that's understandable, and that that's something that we encounter a lot. Is people say, well, we love your ideals, we love what the Libertarian Party stands for, but a Libertarian Party candidate isn't going to get elected isn't going to be president. They're not going to be in the Senate. They're not going to be in the House. They're not going to be on the state level, et cetera. And I kind of reject that premise. We've had a lot of buts that got elected. A lot of people said Donald Trump can't be taken seriously. I mean, come on, he's the celebrity apprentice. Well, he's president. He got elected.
True.
Yes.
Very true.
People said Ross Perot, he's a joke. Well, not so much. I mean, maybe a little bit, but think about the millions of votes that he got, and if he hadn't dropped out, who knows? He might have picked up some electoral college votes. People said that Jesse Ventura would never, that's a joke candidacy in Minnesota, and he was elected governor. We could go on. There was a time that the Republican Party was a minor party in this country. So, everybody has to start somewhere. The problem becomes, Hal, here in Tennessee is due to ballot restrictions, which are absolutely ridiculous, is that libertarians cannot self-identify as such on the ballot. We have to be labeled in as independents with everyone else. So
Why?
so instead of, well, the rules are if you're a Republican or Democrat, you need 25 signatures to run as a Republican or Democrat. As a libertarian, it's based on a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of the number of votes cast in the previous gubernatorial election. It can range from 40 to 50 to 60,000 signatures. If I were to tell you that I was going to sell you a dish of ice cream for $1, but unless you were blue-eyed or brown-haired or something else, then it's $1,000.
Right.
That's called discrimination. But that's what we have in Tennessee, and we've had they've given us ballot requirements. We've had earnest attempts to meet those, and then they keep moving the goalposts. So what we're trying to do is to try to take a number of approaches, legislatively and otherwise, to try to get that. We're not asking for a level playing field, because guess what? The Republicans and Democrats control it. They control the playing field, and they understand what's happening. They know that the Libertarian Party is an existential threat to their power base. They don't want us on the ballot. They don't want the Libertarian brand out.
You know, Tom, those are, I really like the passion there. And it kind of brings up your passion. We're kind of going off on Twitch here, a lot of good points. Something I was already thinking as well while you were speaking. One point I want to bring up interferes with some of our comments from our guests, which we love the guests. Y'all keep bringing it in, giving us ideas. Is how do you tap into that huge, large demographic of young people and people in general not voting? And one theory I think that can help. Now, this is just my own opinion. I'm a welder. I'm a welding teacher. I've never worked in politics, but it would make sense that you have so many Republicans and maybe even some Democrats. I'm not so familiar with the Democrats because how far the left socially has went as far as extremism in some cases. But like you have Thomas Massey, Justin Amash, Glenn Jacobs here locally in Tennessee, East
Yes.
Tennessee. What would it look like for the Libertarian Party to get some big names like that and actually declare, you know what, we're libertarians. We're breaking from the Republican Party. We're libertarians. And how much would that help tap into here? Let's say locally in Tennessee, if somebody like Glenn Jacobs was to declare that, how do you think that would fare and get young people into the voting booths possibly?
Well, I think, first of all, seeing Justin Amash come out and officially register as a libertarian, that was, I think, seismic in that now on the national stage you have someone with an L beside their name in Congress as opposed to R and D. And I think the hope that we all have is that that's going to open up the door for other like-minded people to come out and say, you know what, this is who we are and this is what we want to identify with. And that does need to start at the top. You know, this is kind of an internal debate that we have a lot, or that you see a lot. You know, Penn Jillette is a well-known and outspoken libertarian. My brain has. He's the host of Price is Right. Forgive me. Drew Carey is another prominent libertarian. You have John Stossel and so many of these big names. Glenn Jacobs definitely has libertarian leanings, but still flies the Republican flag. So obviously having some of these big names step out, but our current chairman is a man named Nick Sarwark. He's fond of using this statement that he's the least important member of the Libertarian Party. the most important member of the Libertarian Party is you, it's me, it's the rank and file member. So what's going to happen is that people who believe this, people who believe in the Libertarian Party platform, people who believe in the principle that all the rights belong to all people at all times, and that government should stay out of the way of people exercising those rights to their fullest capacity. When people begin to step up, when they go to lp.org and join and become a member of the National Party, when they go to lptn.org and become a member of the state party, $25 makes you a voting member of the LP, of the National LP. $25 makes you a voting member of the state LP, State Libertarian Party. So you're talking about just a little over $1 a day. It's when people step up and we start seeing the numbers come, and we start seeing people stepping out, becoming a vocal member, and casting those votes for libertarians. That's what's going to make the difference. So I feel like I may have not completely answered that, or that may not have been the answer that sounds. I guess I'll give you a short answer instead of a long answer is it's going to take people just doing it. What's it going to take for people stepping out and to become part of the party? It's going to take people stepping out and becoming part of the party. We are not a political action committee. We are a political party.
Right.
So we need people to step up and join.
I agree with that. Now, I have one comment I just want to say before we go on that. I like the passion a lot there, and I think we're kind of seeing that through action with guys like, for example, Glenn Jacobs and his stance on COVID. That's a very libertarian stance he's taken.
Yes.
About people's personal freedoms, and I think that is a very politically incorrect stance. But he took a libertarian stance, and that's I think that's one thing in action, but. One thing me and Howard are talking about, that's just an observation on your point, because I completely agree with you that young people and non-voters, if they do feel aligned with libertarian views, need to get involved, myself included. Hal had a good question earlier about, what was it, how to physically do it, like what websites to get on?
Well, actually, that's kind of where I was going. For the last few election cycles, I've really only known a handful of people here locally that were behind the Libertarian Party. So from your standpoint, how does it look here in Campbell County from where you're sitting? As far as people that you know that are behind it, maybe candidates?
Yeah. Here, as in many counties, now most of the counties around do have partisan primaries. For instance, in Anderson County, Knox County, et cetera, the county mayoral, for instance, the county mayoral candidates do have to declare a party. In Campbell County, it's nonpartisan, so everyone goes on the ballot as an independent. So in some ways there, just from a ballot standpoint, it does kind of get confusing, because when people look at that, they have to really wade and kind of sort through the weeds a little bit to see where candidates stand.
Yeah, that's sort of a weird thing to have thrown on you, when you walk in to vote, is X amount of people with an I beside their name.
Correct.
Whereas you don't really know what party they align with, and you've not gotten to hear their voice.
So it is a little difficult there. And to be sure, there are people that do have political leanings one way or the other, but when it comes to general election time, they tend to be a little more close to the vest about those. For obvious reasons. They don't want to alienate a block of people that they want to have vote for them. but we can begin to press on issues. For instance, why is it that a temporary wheel tax that was put on Campbell County residents 30 years ago has only increased and is still there? So the definition of temporary, I mean, gosh, I was taught wrong all those years. Temporary, I thought it was there for a time and then going away. So you have, for instance, you have this as something that's sticking around, and so where that plays into fiscal discipline and how we control what's going on, and in terms of our fiscal responsibility as a county. So we have to ask in a very libertarian way of the candidates when we get the opportunity, what's your take on this, and why? And obviously there are, and I pick that just as one example. Obviously there are some thorny issues, and they throw out answers about the budget, but we can't start taking money away from the budget because we've got sunk costs into this or into that project or into something else. But then it does lead to other things. So it's difficult. I do know this, that there are libertarian voices in Campbell County. There are people that I think need to be encouraged to step up and run. We don't just want to see someone elected president as a libertarian. We don't just want Congress, people in Congress or people in the Senate. We want to see libertarian state legislators. We want to see people who have libertarian ideas on the school board. We want to see people with libertarian ideals on county commission, and so on. But we have to have people step up and be counted. And one of the ways to do that is, like I say, becoming part, both locally. We have the Libertarian Regional, the East Tennessee Regional Libertarian Party. We have the party on the state level. So there are ways for people to step up and be heard.
Tom, I've got a question specifically to, you mentioned earlier, kind of in Tennessee, the cards are stacked against the Libertarian Party. Do you feel that way as well with the media coverage and how the Libertarian Party is portrayed, or any media coverage at all? Because it seems like, just like there's a bipolar opposite of the news, Fox, MSNBC, CNN, and there's no, like, those are just a reflection of that extreme. There's no in the middle media source for reasonable people to sit and talk and say, hey, that makes sense. I don't want to govern how anybody lives or this way. I agree with this guy. Do you see any of that, or have you encountered that as in your time in the Libertarian Party?
Absolutely, no question. And I want to be kind to my Republican and Democrat friends, and I do have a lot of friends still in both parties. But the sad reality is that while Republicans and Democrats, for instance, Republicans like to throw rocks at MSNBC and CNN for liberal bias. The left tends to throw rocks at Fox News for a so-called conservative bias.
They can't live without each other.
What's that?
They can't live without each other. They're two parts
exactly.
of the same coin.
Exactly. Notice the absence there. The fact that you have a bias for one, or a perceived bias for one or against the other, or that sort of thing, it squashes because they're so busy lifting up their side and putting down what they think is the other side. They fail to do what is responsible and present to the American people that there is more than one viable option. Did anyone hear that Jo Jorgensen set an ambitious goal of a money bomb for over the July 4th weekend that she not only met, but exceeded?
No.
Of course not.
That's
If
you
Donald
never
Trump
see
had
any of
done that, yeah, if Donald Trump had done that, not only would he be tweeting about it, but you would have CNN responding to his tweets about it.
Yeah.
You would have MSNBC responding to his tweets about it. And you would have Fox News responding to his tweets about it. So the reason we are not hearing about Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen is you're not hearing about them. They are deliberately choosing to do that again because they are part of the problem. It's that crony capitalism. These for all of their clamorings otherwise, whether it's CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, One America, whatever, they all have a vested interest in either the Republicans winning and the Democrats losing, or vice versa, the Democrats winning and the Republicans losing. Neither win if the libertarians win. Neither win if the people win. So they have a vested interest in that, in protecting their own and protecting their own agenda. As much as they like to say they want to hear all voices and give all voices equal credence, they don't do that. Much like the debates. When you have a debate
Absolutely.
commission that is controlled by Republicans and Democrats, gee, I can't imagine why they wouldn't let a libertarian on the platform.
Right.
Oh, wait. Yes, it's because they do not want an existential threat to both power structures on the platform. Because if they do, God forbid someone listen and vote.
What I find strange, here in Tennessee, is I'm sure you've seen the kind of back and forth smear campaigns on a state level. You've got, I think his name is Manzi or whatever. He's a doctor.
Yes.
Have you seen his?
Yeah.
I mean, it's silly.
Yeah.
I don't know how people take.
Educate me. I'm not familiar with what you're talking with.
It's the you see them on like WBIR and other news stations. These just almost comical campaign ads. The guy he's like going to church is illegal but beating up your neighbor's not, and it's like these weird extremes that they're
see
just
what you're talking about.
all they're doing right now is pandering. And anytime like a third party gets brought up, you hear, well, that's just a vote for insert whatever person I don't like. It's never there's never a conversation. I feel like people just try to like divert and keep away from having to discuss something that maybe they're not educated on.
Yeah, and people believe that, unfortunately. Unfortunately, the masses believe that. What's funny is, literally after, Joe Jorgensen hadn't been the nominee of the Libertarian Party for more than 20 seconds. And I'm exaggerating a little bit. I'm using hyperbole.
Sure.
But immediately the GOP comes out. Oh, my goodness. Oh, they're setting their hair on fire. A vote for Joe Jorgensen will guarantee a Joe Biden victory. And at the same time, you had the DNC saying, oh, my goodness. Oh, we can't have Joe Jorgensen being voted for. That will guarantee 4 more years of Trumpism and 4 more years of Trump being elected and nominating people to the Supreme Court. But yet at the same time, their media lemmings say, oh, the Libertarian Party isn't to be taken seriously. They're these diaper wearing, boot on their head wearing, whatevers, when that's nothing could be further from the truth. Joe Jorgensen is a tenured professor, a business person, an earned doctorate. No, she's not a professional politician, but wait a minute, neither is that guy sitting in the Oval Office right now.
Right.
So it's amazing how the media, in their attempt to squelch a free exchange of ideas, uses hypocrisy and doublespeak. It's just absolutely. It would be funny if it wasn't tragic and such a deception of the American people.
I think a lot of it too, you know, you mentioned the like boot on your head. I feel like people like that Vermin Supreme are kind of doing a disservice to any sort of a third party in the way that it does make them look, you know, like the tinfoil hat, conspiracy, crazy, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, that's who's getting coverage. People know who he is. It's unbelievable. That they think that's an actual issue, you know? And now we've got Donald Trump and Kanye West hanging out, you know, they're buddies or whatever. So I don't really see our side of things as any more of a joke than what's going on in the White House or around the election.
No, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I mean, I don't, you know, don't quote me on this, kind of like a personal thought, but I feel like, you know, with the whole Kanye West thing that's going on right now, if you go back and you look at from the time that Donald Trump was inaugurated, you have Kanye West hanging out at the White House, but he's still doing his normal shit, you know, he's still Kanye West. And then all of a sudden he makes this big gap or big leap into, you know, okay, now I'm a Christian, I'm a gospel singer, whatever. And I feel like this was all a ploy to, you know, kind of shift the black vote, which I doubt is going to happen. And I think Donald Trump is so out of touch with reality that he really thinks that's a good tactic. But like I said, in the end, what we're seeing is just it's like that movie Idiocracy.
Yeah.
It's a big joke, and you know, we can have somebody like Vermin Supreme get actual coverage. As much of a joke as it is, he's actually getting coverage. People know who he is. But then again, you have any sort of a libertarian candidate, Green Party candidate, so on, that they get no attention from the media, whether it be bad or good. So they just don't want their voice heard at all.
Correct.
I'm about to, we all agree on that. I'm about to dive into a pretty kind of tough question for you, Tom, because I've thought about it, and it's just, for one, it's an opinion of mine. I want to see what you think about it, how you and I've talked about it off and on a little bit. But it seems to me, in today's world, especially when we're talking about a third party or libertarianism, a lot of the issues that drive people away from the Libertarian Party too are extreme social issues. Because I think libertarians get it right when it comes to, you know, widespread. We agree we want to end the war on drugs. It's a failure. It's led to further classism and class warfare, and it's created an epidemic, and it also leads to victimless crimes. But we can't get to those serious conversations because the right and the left polarizes so much with social issues like this Confederate monument's oppressing you, or we need to take down Mount Rushmore. All these extreme things where it splits people to the extremes, and we can't talk about things that we agree on about, as like we want to let people live as they live, and that we believe in liberty. But the extreme social issues keep us from even coming to the table, especially for our young people. Is that kind of a tactic of the media or social media platforms you feel like used by the left and the right, Tom?
I think what you just mentioned and what Hal just mentioned both intertwine. You have a couple of factors going on. It's multifaceted. First, you do have the cult of personality, in that Joe Jorgensen shatters a fundraising goal as a viable candidate, as a member as the representative of the third largest political party and the fastest growing political party in the country. But Kanye West floats out that he's coming for president, and that's the headline. So you have that going on. The other thing is, as you say, we still have a failed war on drugs that is still going on as we speak. We are almost $25 trillion in debt. We have skyrocketing healthcare costs in this country. We have a broken retirement system. We have tariffs that are destroying innovation and production for American industry, for American farmers. We have an immigration crisis, but none of that is getting any attention because, as you mentioned, right now it's all monuments and masks. That's what we're being fed by the corporate media. Monuments and masks. Monuments and masks. So it's a diversion.
You're saying, and I think, Hal, I want your input on this. You're saying force the conversation to say, hey, the war on drugs is the largest issue that we're having with, police brutality and everything that comes along with that. You got kind of like force that conversation. What do you think, Hal? Do you feel like you have to force that conversation?
Yeah, but a lot of times I feel like it doesn't do any good because, like I said, you have people that they divert. Every time that you bring up something that they're not educated on, it's some sort of weird, like, I know you are, or I know I am, or, whatever, like the Pee Wee Herman thing. I know you are, but what am I? And it's never a serious conversation. I've seen it from social media. You see it on the news. It's everywhere. It's hard to force the conversation. I think most people, regardless of what side you fall on, understand that the war on drugs is a failure. It's cost tax dollars and
how
lives.
can you not recognize that?
And another thing I've realized is, as far as libertarians go, it's kind of the best of both worlds, and it just cuts out all that other bullshit that's just filler. That's really a non-issue at the end of the day. I feel like something that the conservative side could rally around is the issue of gun control.
Yeah.
The left, not so much, but at the same time, I know a lot of very left-leaning people, myself included, that I think it's a right to defend yourself in this country by whatever means you feel is necessary. That kind of goes back to the fear of a tyrannical government, though. We don't necessarily need fucking nuclear weapons or anything, but if the government has it, they can use it against you if they so choose. There's nothing really stopping that aside from what we've seen, these demonstrations of people marching armed. So I think that's one good talking point to get the right into the conversation.
How it's interesting you bring up gun control, because there's something else you and I have talked about on many occasions, and it kind of deals with the DNC with Biden, the choice with Biden. He not too long ago in an interview with an iron worker at a plant, I might be misquoting what his job was, but he looked like an iron worker to me at a plant. You know what I'm talking about,
I've
where
seen the video.
He called the AR, the M4, a machine gun. Mm-hmm. So that tells me two things. Either he's not in the right mind and can't speak intelligibly about that, or he is lying and outright saying, well, the M4 is a machine gun. I think it's the former, and you've had some theories on that. Go into that real quick, and then we'll go into with you, Tom, on your thoughts on the Second Amendment.
Well, we've talked about my issue with the Democrats using Joe Biden. I've worked in healthcare. I've seen how people act when they first start getting into the early stages of Alzheimer's, dementia, etc. So if I was in a place of power in the Democratic Party, I kind of feel ashamed for parading someone around like that, regardless of his past. You know, I don't know the guy. So I don't know what he has done, just like I don't really know what anyone else has done as far as like the sexual abuse claims and all that. It's speculation as far as that.
There's a lot of misinformation out there on both sides too. So yeah, I stay away
definitely,
from that.
I think that as far as Joe Biden's comments to that guy, I think he's just extremely misinformed on that.
Or confused.
Or confused. But when you hear the term assault rifle, that gets thrown around, there's an image that comes to mind of,
Right.
you know, a weapon that looks like something the military would use. The way that the AR-15 is styled, it does kind of resemble that. I mean, you can't argue that. People are just afraid of the sight of something like that. You know what I mean? And they don't do any research. They refuse. People don't read anymore. That's a big problem. People don't read. They expect somebody to tell them. That's from politics to church to school to everything. They want someone to wrap everything up in a neat little package for them. And I think that's the biggest problem that we have as far as the gun control conversation goes. No one knows. No one is actually informed enough to even be talking about it. The ones that are on these stages, at least.
Tom, I know we went a long time. What do you got on all that, or hit spots of it you would like to?
Yeah, something that Hal mentioned, and then talking about the Second Amendment. One of the things about changing the conversation or framing the conversation is to go from the specific to the general, rather than going from the general to the specific. And let me give you an example about that. The Breonna Taylor case, with the no-knock warrant in Louisville, Kentucky, that has spawned all the protests and everything that's gone on in Louisville, Kentucky. It was a terrible tragedy. But from that specific, we can go back to the general overarching theme that we believe as libertarians, that all rights enumerated and codified in the Constitution belong to all people at all time and in all times. So therefore, for Breonna Taylor and for her companion, they had every right to keep and bear arms as the Second Amendment guarantees them. And especially, and now I don't think you'd be hard pressed to find a Republican who would logically disagree with that. But the emotional argument from the left they get very uncomfortable about that. But my question to my left-leaning friends there is, the Second Amendment and the infringement of the right to bear arms tends to disproportionately affect minorities and those in the lower income groups, people who live in places where police don't readily come and aren't readily available. Do these people not have the right to responsibly defend themselves? And as what I believe was happening in the Breonna Taylor case, to me, which was a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Look, I've got a lot of friends in law enforcement that they don't want no-knock warrants. They don't want to be plainclothes, guns blazing, going in, kicking someone's door down, because they know they would react just as anyone else would. They would perceive that as an existential threat, and they're going to defend those whom they love. So in that specific, we go back to the general. All the rights belong to all people at all times. And so you can start to apply that to other areas as well.
Tom, I think you sell yourself short on oratory. That's really a solid point.
I think going back to that Breonna Taylor case, what I don't understand is why her boyfriend, husband, whatever, why was he charged for defending himself? I mean, if someone comes in your house at, I believe they said it was like 11:30 at night. I'm not sure, but
correct.
If if someone breaks into your house at 11:30 at night and you start shooting them, I don't see that as unwarranted. But they've charged
Right.
them by now, and they've not, as far as I know, unless something has happened in the last day or so, have not charged the officers.
Yeah, as I understand it, and again, I'll have to put this disclaimer out there that I've not been looking at the news with that very closely the last couple of days, but the charge was first-degree murder.
Yeah.
And that requires a level of premeditation, which means he would have had to have thought, the police are going to be coming and knocking on the door at some point. And when they do, I'm going to be ready with my loaded, whatever it was that he used. I mean, come on. No one, it's because, as well pointed out, people are not thinking, they're feeling. Like with the Parkland thing, terrible tragedy. People respond with emotion. They respond by feeling.
Right.
And what we're saying is, let's calm down. Let's get out of our neutral corners and opposite corners. Let's stop lobbing hand grenades, and let's come and look reasonably at how we can bring a stop to all this and go again from the specific to the general and then work our way back. But the problem is we never get to the general. It's these little emotional fixes that make us all feel better. Let's mandate a waiting period. Let's mandate trigger locks. Let's mandate this. Let's mandate only 10-round mags and all those kinds of things. All it takes is one bullet. I mean, come on. You went from 10 to 15, but you make yourself feel good. You feel as if you've done something. Libertarians are serious people with serious answers to serious problems. And we know that it doesn't take making ourselves feel good, but it's doing good. It's doing right. That's what we need. That's what Joe Jorgensen believes. That's what I believe. And that's what millions of libertarians across this country believe. And I know people that are listening right now believe. And that's why I'm saying, log on, lptn.org, lp.org, stand up, be heard. It is time for our voice to be heard and be counted.
Indeed. Absolutely, I 100% agree. I want to move on from the second to the first. Is that all right? Everybody okay? Good with that?
Sure.
All right. So a phenomenon that I've noticed, other YouTubers have noticed, is that throughout social media platforms, you're seeing a censorship of certain personalities that fit different narratives. For example, there's was it Donald Trump? Donald Trump was blocked in Reddit. Not what was it last week when that happened?
I'm not really.
Can we pull that up, Walker? The Reddit ban of Donald Trump, where his platform was banned on Reddit. A lot of censorship going on. Reddit bans the _Donald forum of nearly 800,000 Trump fans over abusive posts. What is your viewpoint and the overall consensus with the Libertarian Party on speech? And, especially in the gray area, the hair area, where you meet private corporations or entities like YouTube or Reddit doing their things, should they allow free speech, or are they allowed to pick and choose who gets a voice? How deep is that, and what is your consensus and the Libertarian Party's consensus on that?
Well, I mean, for the libertarian platform on free speech, it's that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances. Full stop. Having said that, we balance that against the fact, or the principle, that you as a business owner should not be mandated to give the fruits of your labor to anyone apart from voluntary contractual relationships. I'm not sure of the ins and outs of the user agreement between the owner of that account and Reddit. I know that if I own a business, the First Amendment applies in my business. However, it is my business, and I am allowed, if there is speech there that I do not want to occur, and this is where the water gets a little muddy, but that's your business, and that's your company, that is your that's yours. So you get to determine the right of what occurs there. So it seems somewhat contradictory, but the thing is, these can be held in tension, but in a truly free market, let's face it. If YouTube tomorrow banned all conservative thought in a truly free enterprise, you know what's going to happen. A brand new YouTube is going to pop up, and that's what's supposed to happen. A brand new GOP tube is going to pop up. That's why ideally we have Twitter competing against Facebook rather than there being a kind of a monopolistic sort of thing.
They're being a team.
Exactly.
Team.
Everybody started out doing what you're doing. Jim Acosta at one time was a reporter at was it WBIR or WATE? So, and now here he is as a host and the senior White House reporter for CNN. Fox News and Roger Ailes and all of those felt like their views weren't being represented, so they went out and started Fox News. They're obviously, the First Amendment is what it is, but because the First Amendment is what it is, we have the freedom to, okay, if Facebook, if you don't want my message on there, if you're going to censor me, then I'll take my business somewhere else. And that's the beautiful power of free markets. Unfortunately, Republicans and Democrats no longer believe in that. There was a time that you had a difference there. There was a time that you had a party in the two that I just mentioned that was very pro-business and very pro-competition. I don't think we have that anymore. The only party that believes in a true free market society where people should be allowed to voluntarily exchange goods and voluntarily exchange and trade as they see fit, as they deem contractually viable and necessary. That's the Libertarian Party. And so that's the solution, is you let the market dictate, you let the market take care of itself, because in a truly free market, we have that. We have those options. The problem becomes when the government creates these barriers that seem insurmountable, but they are not in a truly free market. And we have libertarians like Joe Jorgensen out there fighting for business people like yourself. They're fighting for people like me to be able to go and engage in commerce and engage in trade according to my dictates, not what the government dictates to me and for me.
We've got a question from a viewer, Patrick. Isn't social media the de facto town square in 2020 when Google, YouTube's owner, has 70% market share in the web advertising space? It's a monopoly. What would you say to our viewer, Patrick?
Patrick, I think that point's well taken. Obviously, this is where we have, and this was the genesis of antitrust laws, to enable and to allow competition. having said that, antitrust laws have become a weapon to do just the opposite of what they were intended to do. What they've done is that they have allowed for conglomerations to occur. You basically have Comcast, NBC, Universal controlling a vast number of media outlets. You have Google, YouTube with such a huge market share. But what we need is to take away those restrictions, some of which have to do with licensure. The FCC is fond of saying the airwaves belong to the public, but then they run, and they do not walk, they run to dole them out to those who engage in crony capitalism. They go, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, they dole that out to their big contributors and allow them to gobble up more of a market share disproportionately. So the solution is, I think Twitter can be, Facebook can be the new public square. I think what you're doing, what you guys are doing, is the new public square. This is how we get together on the courthouse steps now, is through social media. And by creating that, and by aggregating our voices, and by letting our voices be heard through channels like you guys, like what you have, that's the way we can engage in discourse. Because Patrick, you're right. CNN has a narrative. CNN has an agenda that they're going to push. MSNBC, Fox, all of those have an agenda that they have to push at the golden altar of the powers that be. But we still have a voice, or else we wouldn't be talking right now. We have a vehicle, and it just takes using that vehicle to advance these ideas.
All right. Well, that hits on the First Amendment, and boom. Yep. My views on speech. Don't ban it. You can't ban it. I think we all unanimously agree on that, right?
Absolutely.
One of the topics we had with one of our really well-spoken guests, Marcus Randolph.
Yeah.
Randolph. We're looking to have him on in the future. We got on the subject of militias, and there's a rise of them in America again, which I think is an overall good thing. But, what is the libertarian... I know that's not a specific voting point, but I'm just kind of curious, maybe on your personal views of that rise, that phenomenon. Like, for example, at Stone Mountain, where those 200 marched out there, and then you have like the rise of the 3%ers, and what that kind of has to say about American culture with the Second Amendment.
Well, you're right, and you just keyed on something crucial, that it's not just about forming a militia. It's about forming a militia for a purpose. There's a reason that people got together and decided to throw a lot of tea into the water. It's not because we wanted to change the color of the water. It was because there was taxation without representation, and that just happened to be how it happened. But if the media were framing the narrative today, who knows how they, what direction they would take that from, or take that to, rather. There's a reason that people, I come back to this. There's a reason that Barack Obama was elected. There's a reason that Donald Trump was elected. There's a reason that there's a reason that the Tea Party was formed. There's a reason that all of these things happen. There's a reason that these militias are coming about. There's a reason that this cancel culture is just growing legs and tentacles and spreading out to the point to where even the Jefferson Memorial now, people have their their targets set on the Jefferson Memorial. It's because there's an underlying reason for that, and for militias, what they're saying is, look, in my mind, what I'm hearing, not necessarily my belief, but what I'm hearing is we have a legitimate concern. We want to we want to ensure that our rights are protected. It's been widely said and widely believed that without the Second Amendment, there's not really a good mechanism to enforce the other amendments in opposition to a tyrannical government who wants to take that particular right away. Take, for instance, the Fourth Amendment, the right to be secure in your home, the right to be secure in your person against unlawful and unreasonable searches and seizures. Without the Second Amendment, the government can trample on that any way and any time that they want. But the Second Amendment is a guardian against that. So I think that's what's going on with the militias, is that they're feeling that, we're looking around, we see the pictures of police being overrun. We see a growth in, I hate to call it anarchy, because it's not really anarchy. It's chaos. Anarchy is a philosophy. It's not people going around bursting through stores and coming out with the latest pair of Jordans. That's not an anarchist.
You actually made that distinction. Thank you.
That's chaos. That's not anarchy.
Exactly.
So when you have people that are seeing that, they have a legitimate concern, and therefore they are using their constitutional right to say, we are not going to stand for this if, God forbid, the government either intrudes on our rights or will not protect our rights to exist and to do all of these other things. So that's what I think is going on with the militia. I understand it, and I think that's one of the reasons why the Second Amendment is there. So their voices are understandable.
I think that's 100% reasonable. Al, what do you got on that?
I'm just glad that you made the distinction between complete chaos and anarchy, because that term has been thrown around a lot here lately, and yeah,
it drives me crazy, because anarchy is a subset of, you'll find libertarians who say that they are anarchists. That doesn't mean that they want to go around blowing everything up. Exactly. What that means is that they believe in pretty much zero level of government, and that you are completely responsible, and that you are completely and totally, whether it's your own protection, your own law enforcement, your own whatever, you're responsible for 100% of it, and that the government should have zero control, because there should be virtually no government, if any government at all. And while you're going to have some libertarians that would agree with that, some libertarians would disagree with that, that's okay, because we can talk about these sorts of things. I forget if a famous libertarian, and I'm having it's a Monday, I'm having a terrible name day.
That's okay.
But said that there should be, whenever you have an anarchist in the room, you should have a classical liberal. And whenever you have a classical liberal in the room, you should have an anarchist. And just for defining purposes, a classical liberal is a libertarian who believes that government can have a legitimate role. On one end of the spectrum, the anarchist is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum in terms of what role government should have in our lives. But all of these people can sit around the table and talk about things and have serious solutions to serious problems about these. But yeah, absolutely, these are not anarchists. The people that are out bursting through store windows, standing on the 2nd Street Bridge in Louisville, stopping traffic, potentially harming people, which to me violates one of the core libertarian principles. You don't harm people, you don't take their stuff.
Absolutely.
When you're out doing that, that's not an anarchist. That's a chaotist, for lack of a better word.
Criminal.
Yeah, absolutely. No question.
Well, Tom, we're about to have to get off here. Before we let you go, we're going to go ahead and kind of go over and let all our viewers know what we have planned for next week, big plans. We want to thank you first before we go into that, Tom. Thank you for coming on. Hal, you got anything on that?
Yeah, is there any I guess other local means to maybe educate people on this that you want to mention,
or libertarian rallies, or
anything,
or conventions, anything to mention for our viewers and listeners? Because we're going to share this. We don't have the big numbers right now. We're not bumping anything any huge, but we do share this. People do listen to this. We do get views on YouTube, and whoever we want that's hear this, we want you to hear what's going on. Want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, let me thank you guys for taking the time to having me on, and it's my pleasure. And anytime, obviously the varsity is Justin Cornett, but if you want to get a backbencher, I'm happy to jump on. But second of all,
I would like to have you both on together the next time we do this, because when we mix it back up with, we're about to do race and racism and some pretty polarizing political questions in our country in the next series. We would like to come back into libertarianism, and my idea is the blind eye to the failure of the war on drugs by both parties. So
yes.
we're going to want both of y'all on because y'all are both great guests. But again, we want to thank you again for that.
Well, thank you. How people can get involved locally is first start at the top or start nationally. LP.org, www.lp.org. Check out our platform. Check out the resources that are available there. Sign up, become a member. For $25, you are a member of the Libertarian National, and you're eligible to be a delegate at the Libertarian National Convention. By the way, the second part of that, we had to, because of COVID-19, we had to kind of split it up. We nominated Joe Jorgensen as our standard bearer and as our candidate, and Spike Cohen as our vice presidential candidate. And I love it because we do it the old-fashioned way. We do it at the convention, and we elect them separately. But go to lp.org, $25 a year. You're a dues-paying member. You're a card-carrying member of the Libertarian Party, and you're eligible to be a national delegate if elected at the state level. And that can happen by going to lptn.org, www.lptn.org. $25 a year gets you membership in the State Libertarian Party. Josh Eckel, our great state chairman, Cole Ebel, our outstanding former state chairman, come to that family reunion that we have in every year. That allows you to be a delegate, that allows you to vote, that allows your voice to be heard. And keep an eye out. We are forming, a county Facebook page. I'll send you a link. I'll post a link in Open Room or the Open Table when we get that going on and we get that fully up and running. I'll also post contact information if people want to ask questions of me or things like that. And there's nothing to join, no cost, anything like that. Right now on the county level, it's just a free exchange of like-minded individuals and that sort of thing. We also have a regional meeting that happens once a month in Knoxville. You go and you sit around, you eat, drink, have a good time, and there are great speakers there. Not just libertarians, by the way. We listen to everyone. We take all opinions. We want to hear from all voices. But I'll be happy to post those once those get up and running. But in the meantime, lp.org, lptn.org, and don't forget to check out who should be the next president of the United States, Joe Jorgensen. If you want to check out the Jorgensen Cohen ticket, it's JOJ 2020 joj2020.com, joj2020.com. Get information, get yourself informed, become aware of what's going on in the party nationally, on the state level, and on down, and become the most important member of the Libertarian Party. Join, and I'll post some local things as we go about. But I appreciate you guys for having me on and for shamelessly plugging the Libertarian Party over and over like I have.
Oh no, man!
No,
Thank you.
that was the point. that was the point, because as you illustrated and Hal's illustrated, I think we all kind of started as like-minded in thinking that it's been very unequal in representation of candidates within the American politics, and it's been that way since the Whigs turned into the Republicans, and then the Republicans and Democrats flipped. So it's been that same cycle. So once again, we're going to thank you for that. We're at the end of the show. I want to kind of shed a little light. I don't want to put too much out on the table, but we here at the Open Table have openly challenged a Hasid Sakari of the Levite tribe of Atlanta to debate, interview, just talk to us publicly. He's not responded back to us. We're gonna kind of follow up on, start talking about things that we talked about tonight: militias, religion and government, and the First Amendment. But that's definitely going to be a little bit more of a upbeat interview. I'm not sure what's going to happen with it, because one thing for sure, all our viewers, everybody listening, we want to thank you for listening, being with us. I know, like I said, this is the beginning, the genesis of it, but we're trying to do something different. And next week is going to be an experiment, and I hope he accepts. You know, his subordinate was super old. Oh, my bad, Walker. Shit show. My bad. I didn't mean to cuss. See, I'm the one that slipped today. You know, I should be ashamed of myself. Hal. What do you think about next week? The possibilities of what it might be. Do you think he'll accept?
Man, I don't know.
I guess his subordinate, however it works within their chain of command, said that he was game and wanted to have us on. He told me, quote, "We want smoke."
Well,
unquote.
That seems interesting.
Walker, what do you have on that?
Absolutely.
He said, absolutely, I will not speak on this. It's all right. But we want comments, suggestions. That's not going to be the only thing in the upcoming series, though. That's just kind of going to highlight the First Amendment and really kind of try to talk to us about some polarizing issues in America and where we're at. But we have a lot more guests in the future. But like, again, we want to thank everybody, and we're going to hop off. Have a good one.
Later.